Good morning, everyone. I will start in about 30 seconds. Give everyone a chance to log on into this webcast. So bear with me for a couple more seconds and then I will start. Thank you. Right, I'm gonna start now. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, depending on what region you are. My name is Harold Buter, and I'm a pre-sales consultant for Arcserve for EMEA North. So today, webcast, we will cover actually Arcserve Replication High Availability, stands for RHA, and that's what I will call during our presentation. And this product helps companies to provide them a disaster recovery and a business continuity solutions, whether it's for full systems or for application levels. And this is what we're going to do during today's, or the agenda for today's. Is first of all, I'm going to do a couple of slides, present a few slides about Arcserve, about the need for a disaster recovery solution and continued high availability solution. And then followed by a quick solution overview about RHA. It's not going to be too technical today. I just want to keep it short and crisp. And then after the solution overview, what we will do is do a demonstration of a SQL high availability scenario. Meanwhile, if there's any questions or whatsoever, please use the question box, and I will cover that in the end of the after the demonstration. The slide deck and the demonstration in total takes about 45 to 50 minutes, so we have plenty of time to answer questions afterwards. Meanwhile, if you can't make the questions, or if you have more technical questions or other things that you would like to cover, please use your local sales representative for your region. And with that, let's give it a start. So first of all, let me introduce Arcserve. For those people that don't know Arcserve yet, Arcserve emerged in the early 90s as part of CN Software. We were developed actually by CN Software. And we were mainly known for our flagship product, which was Arcserve Backup. It was the backup product to go to in the early 90s, in the beginning of the 2000s. I think many of you maybe used to work with Novell and T, Windows and T and stuff like that. That's where Arcserve Backup was really market leader in. Now in 1996 actually, I'm just getting ahead here, in 1996 we were acquired by Computer Associates, or CN was, and we continued our product as CA Arcserve. Now in 2006, CA acquired another company called Exosoft, and Exosoft had two products basically in their portfolio, which was OneSync and OneSync HA, and these products became part of the Arcserve family and are now renamed to Arcserve RHA. Now, after 18 years of working under the CA umbrella, we spun off, we became independent. So in 2014, we became completely independent from CA, and we continued as a company, and Arcserve is the company name. Now today, we have three products in our solution. First of all, Arcserve Backup, which is our proven technology product. It's still going on. We're on version 17.5 today. But our main flagship product is UDP. Now UDP launches today a new release. Very exciting about that. However, we won't cover that today, but 6.5 will be released today. So if anyone is interested in that, see our press releases later today and our presentations and webcasts that will follow in the next coming days. And also we have, of course, RHA, which we are covering today. We have about 45,000 customers today, and we use about 7,500 partners. We are a channel-only organization, which means you can only buy Arcserve products via these partners. Our headquarters is based in the US, in Minneapolis, and for Europe we have an EMEA headquarters based in Barcelona. Now we're doing very well. VMware recognized us as best in show and best in virtualization for DR projects back in 2015. And we are recognized by many organizations as a very flourishing backup and disaster recovery solution or vendor. So with that, what I will do now is going into the RHA stuff. And first of all, let me start with a couple of customers. RHA exists already since 2006 under the CA flag and now with us. So we have got a lot of customers actually available or using our products. Bank of America, the Hong Kong Exchange, AT&T, even the BBC and Expedia are using. One of our biggest customers is not on the list, but it's one of the biggest software companies in the world that are actually replicating global website content with our solution. So there's a lot of large companies, but not only large companies and enterprises are using this specific solution. It is also tended for the mid-market and even for some of the SMBs. So I'm going to highlight one of these customers out of this, and that's Alingsås. So Alingsås is a city council in Sweden, and they have bought RHA specifically to protect their Oracle environment. They have 6 Oracle databases sitting on a single server, physical server, and they protect it with RHA. That single server is very important for them. It supports more than 120 internal systems for 4,000 staff, and you can imagine if something goes down, then it has massive impact for this town or for this city. They configured the solution with manual failover for the database and application. I'm going to go a bit more in depth about how to set up this stuff a bit later. The reason why they chose RHA over the own Oracle solution or other solution is that our solution was very cost effective, but also very easy to use and easy to set up for applications. Now the cost of the Oracle solution itself was quite expensive, so hence why they chose us. The customer runs every 6 months DR testing, and they set up automatic testing, but they do also full DR testing for every 6 months just to make sure that everything works. Now in November 2016 they had a main issue, a big issue with the Oracle server, and it crashed. They had a massive hardware failure. So they called the company that actually helped them to implement RHA, which was Load and Infrastructures. And they called this company, and then after 25 minutes the decision was actually made to fail over. And within 5 minutes of the after the initiation, the customers were able to work again, completely transparent, without any need to reconfigure the solution or their end user configuration whatsoever. So that was pretty impressive for this company or for this council to work within 5 minutes after the initiation again. And the beauty of this solution, and I will cover that, is that actually you can automate this as well. So with that, let's go into the trends. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about the trends and why Arcserve, or why a disaster recovery solution. So first of all, the key market trends. We see at Arcserve that there is an increase in mixed environments, mixed and physical. What I mean with mixed environment is physicals, but mixed, especially mixed virtual infrastructure. So people don't solely tend to use one hypervisor anymore, but have maybe multiple hypervisors in the infrastructure. Obviously, cloud becomes very much more important these days, whether it's as a source destination or as a target destination. And we call that the triple play. So you have an environment that consists of physical, virtual environments, and cloud environments. Data can keeps on growing, whether it's unstructured and structured, and of course when you use our backup solution, our UDP solution, this becomes more important, how to be more efficient to store the data when you do backups, how to have longer retention side of things. Next to that, what we do see a lot, and this is where RHA comes in obviously, is that companies tend to shift away from not only having backups to solely rely on backups anymore. They want to have something that provides them continuous availability. So backups is really good to have, and you can have restore your data from 15 minutes ago, an hour ago, or 24 hours ago, depending on the RPOs you set within your company. But increasingly, what we do see is that people have an RPO of a minute, 0 seconds and that kind of stuff. And backup is not good enough for that. Backup is really good for storing long-term data, long-term restores and that kind of stuff. But for immediate recovering without any loss of data, that's where you need another solution. As mentioned earlier, cloud is becoming more important as source as destination, and we'll cover that bit. Also, what we see is an ongoing commoditization of enterprise features. Now, an RHA is a great example of this. People tend to think that having continuous availability, having a high availability solution is only for the enterprise market, and it's a very expensive type thing. That's not true with RHA. RHA is a very cost-effective solution, and it's available for everyone. You can use it in the SMB, but also in the mid-market. And I will show you later in the licensing side of things how you can actually acquire this, because it is part of the UDP or standalone. Now, unification becomes more important, and especially when we are talking about our UDP solution, our Unified Data Protection. It's a single console. We have all the abilities, all the features, it's just from one console, and you can manage everything from one console. And that's very nice, a good feature, and it makes it just easy for administrators to do the backups, the disaster recovery, the high availabilities. And lastly, what we do tend to see is that a lot of more demanding SLAs and compliance regulations, depending on the compliances set by governments or by your company. But obviously, when we are now in a 24/7 economy, the SLAs for data loss and downtime are very tiny, and we need to have at least 5 nines. Availability and that kind of stuff. So it becomes very important to have something in place that can cover these SLAs and these compliances. So when people think of disasters, so people perceive disasters with mainly terrorist attacks, earthquakes, and tsunamis, and God knows what, large fires, as depicted in here. But the chances of happening these disasters are actually pretty slim, to be honest. I think it's less than 1% that this kind of disasters happening to your data center or to your company side of things. But what are the common causes of downtime? Are mainly to do with human error or hardware failures or patching and that kind of stuff. So you can see that the list that I've set up in here is actually the most common reasons, and I think the planned administrative downtime and patching are by far the main reasons today for disasters. Obviously, also what we do see is utility failures. We are in some regions in the world, we struggle to get enough power to our data centers, and it could cause loss of data, loss of power in the data centers, that kind of scenarios. It's coming more and more. We see it more and more happening today in the markets. Now, with downtime, obviously comes data loss, whether it's intentionally or non-intentionally by end users, by IT staff, or by third parties, whether there's ransomware or viruses or malware. So you need to have a solution that you can protect, that you can actually rewind the data to a point of time back, that you can actually recover files or recover from a ransomware or a virus attack. So you need to have something in place, and this is where we are very strong in. Not only with UDP we can protect for ransomware and viruses and deletion of stuff, but also with our RHA product we can actually go back in time and choose a point in time to go back and recover the data from there. And especially for when we're talking about database and application corruption, that is a very handy feature to have, because you can imagine when you replicate data and you have your some kind of corruption, you want to go back just a few seconds before that corruption happens, or maybe a minute before the corruption happens, so you can verify that database. Now, any downtime, any data loss has impact on the business, and whether that is intentional or non-intentional, it does have a massive impact on business. You can imagine if you are a customer and you go online to a shop and you can't order that product that you really want, you go to another shop and you buy it somewhere else, and in that case you lost some business out of it. Actually, yesterday I encountered something similar. I wanted to try to book a hotel's night at a famous hotel booking site, and I couldn't, so I went to another one. And you can imagine if you have like 10,000 people doing it in the same 5 minutes, that's 10,000 people gone. So you can have a lot of loss of revenue in that perspective. Not only that, it's also jeopardizing your risk. Your risk for shareholders. People these days are quite chatty. They go to social media, they start moaning about that you're down, and maybe not the first time, maybe it's the second time or the fourth time. And when that happens, and when people go to social media, it will affect your stock value if you are publicly listed. So it's very important to have to protect yourself for this kind of impact. And not only that, most of the time when I talk to my partners and end users, I will ask them, do you have a business plan or a disaster recovery plan? How do you recover your data? How do you tier your data, and etc., etc. So it is very important to go to your partners or speak to your partners about having a disaster recovery plan and tier and make sure you can actually recover from it, and then you test for these kind of impacts. Now, obviously, we talk about RHA, and RHA is a solution that can help our customers for disasters and provide the best availability and minimize the data loss. So what is RHA? So RHA provides high availability and continuous data protection for Windows, Linux, Unix on physical and virtual environments. So you can actually recover data literally in just seconds, but without to lose any data or just a second of data. The RPO is literally seconds. Now, I'm going to explain this a little bit more. So what does it do? How does it work? So it's an HA-based solution, and it does real-time asynchronous replication. So we have a master and we have a replica server, whether it's virtual or physical, it doesn't matter. And we sync the data first of all, and after the first sync, we continuously replicate the data between A and B. And the synchronization can be done on block level, on file level, depending on the scenarios you set. Now, it is for a different kind of environments, whether it's for virtual or physical or mixture. You can mix and match actually the whole scenarios. Beauty of the solution, it is for LAN and WAN, so you can do it inside the LAN itself, inside your local network, or you can do it to the WAN, and you can even cascade a solution. So you go from your local network to your secondary site to the cloud. That's not a problem. It's independent of storage, and it's actually independent of hardware. So you can have on your primary side a storage solution A, and on your secondary side a storage solution B, and we can replicate the data between them and provide high availability and continuously replication between them. That's not a problem. As mentioned, you can have a replication one-to-one, many-to-one, one-to-many replication. That's not a problem. Now I'm going to highlight two scenarios today, the full system high availability and the application high availability. Now, full system HA is for physical and virtual servers, so you can actually protect those and fail over to a virtual environment of your choice. Application HA is for databases and applications and whatsoever. And the application database that we support, I will cover that a bit later, but it's what we do with this kind of solution. I've got actually a great slide about that, so I'm going to say that in a minute. But what you can do is fail over the application itself, literally in seconds. The other features, and this is just a short list of features because there's a lot of more features, but I'll just keep it short today. The main features are also data rewind or CDP, continuous data protection. So we can actually set up a journal and go back in time to recover the data on your recovery site or on your primary site. That's not a problem. And that is especially handy for ransomware or corruption of databases and whatsoever. Now, one of my favorite features is assured recovery testing. With assured recovery testing, what we can actually do is automate the testing or set a manual and test your solution. Does it work? Does the failover work? Does the network redirection work? And as part of the assured recovery testing, you can create additional snapshots, VSS snapshots for your database, for instance, so you can test that database, or you can work with the database afterwards just to debug something, for example. So it's a great solution and great product. Now, before I go into the scenarios, let me just explain the four components before I continue, just to make it everyone clear. So we have a control server. So the control service basically is the single point of control for replication and high availability operations. It contains the entire data set for the scenarios, and the scenario is actually the plan that we are using. And the control service communicates with the engines. Now, the engines itself are actually the agents that are installed inside the protected machine, whether it's physical or virtual. We do tend to use these agents, and those agents are actually constantly communicating with each other. So once the scenario is set up, we can if we lose the control service for one reason or another, we can still use the engines to fail over a solution. So if anything happens, you can still fail over the solution. The management center consists of three components: an overview page, the manager itself, and a report center. Quite easy to use, and with that you can actually manage the solution with a GUI side of things. Now, we have a lot of people like myself who quite like to script things and use PowerShell. So we do have a PowerShell module available for those administrators that prefer command line interface over any GUIs. So going into the scenarios. So first of all, we have an application high availability, and this is the scenario I will demonstrate today. And what we actually have is I've just got my mouse here. We have a master server that we are protecting with an engine, and we have a replica server at the secondary side. And the replica server is actually a in Application HA is a standby server. It's got the same operating systems installed. It's got the same application level installed. What happens is actually that we set up a monitoring between the two. So we have a heartbeat between the two, and you can set the heartbeat for whatever values you would like. By default, it's 5 minutes. And if anything happens with the main server, and let me just click that one. If anything happens with the main server, then the standby replica becomes automatically the master server. You can fail over automatically. Of course, you can also set that manually. It's not only that we create that server then as the master, we also do the network redirection, so it's completely transparent for your end users. So DNS redirection is automated. If you want to fail over IP addresses, that is automated. If you want to fail over even a host name, you can do that. There's a lot of things you can actually set to actually fully automate the server, including its network. Now the second scenario is a full system HA, and it's a little bit different. So the full system HA, in this scenario, I'm replicating to a VMware environment. The target for full system HA is always a virtual environment, and that can be VMware, that can be Citrix, and that can be Hyper-V. Now, for VMware, we do require a small appliance at the remote site, and our appliance is actually the replication target. It's not going to be the VM itself, but what it does, that appliance, is actually receive the data from the master and then writes to a VMDK disk. Now, if anything happens to the master server, that VMDK disk will be detached from that appliance and then registered as a VM inside your virtual environment and then booted up. Again, the network will be fully redirected for you. So you can see there's a little bit of a difference in the scenario. Now, each virtual appliance can hold up to 10 or approximately to about 10 master replicas. It depends on the amount of disk and the amount of data, obviously, and how much memory you want to set and how much resource you want to allocate. But normally we tend to say to have up to 10 protecting nodes per appliance and then have a second one. Now, for Hyper-V, you don't require that appliance. Hyper-V, we can write directly to a VHD disk, so hence why we don't need that kind of appliance. So, what are the differences between the HA and full system HA? Application HA requires a standby service, as I mentioned, and that needs to have the same operating system, the same application and patch levels. It can be installed on dissimilar hardware, it can be physical, virtual, and the target can also be physical, virtual, but it does protect only applications. BMR is also supported for Application HA. Now for full system HA, it does require a virtual appliance for the VMware and for Citrix hypervisors. And again, Hyper-V does not require that. Again, source doesn't matter. It can be physical, it can be virtual, it can be Windows, it can be Linux, doesn't matter. The target is always virtual though, as I mentioned earlier. Now the main difference, of course, between Application HA and Full System HA is that Full System HA protects the whole operating system, the whole system state, and any application installed on that one. Again, BMR is supported, but what you do have extra is the cascaded scenario. So with Full System HA, you have the ability to replicate from site A to site B to site C to the cloud, for instance, and that also provides the failover to the cloud, obviously, as the last point in this one. So what do we cover for applications and platforms? So first of all, let me start with the applications. Of course, we've got the Exchange, the SharePoints, the SQLs, the Oracles of this world. We do also do the vCenter. vCenter is only the Windows-based vCenter in this case, not the virtual appliances that VMware released. But also very exciting is actually the two bottom ones, the file server and custom solutions. So especially file servers, you can actually do content distribution. So if you have a large file server estate and you want to deliver content around the globe with the replication side of things, then this is a really good solution for it actually. But also custom in-house custom-made applications. By default, these applications don't come with high availability support or whatsoever. And with our RHA solution, you can actually do that. You can actually create a high availability solution, failover in seconds with your application. That is no problem whatsoever. So it is really good to have that kind of support. Supported operating system, Windows servers up to 2012, 2016. We are developing it at the moment and will be shortly released. And also the Windows clustering is also up to 2012 and 2016 will be released later. Other than that, we have the Solaris, the CineOS, the AEX, the SUSEs, the Red Hats of this world. For virtualization, Hyper-V again up to 2012, 2016 later on, and the same actually for VMware. VMware 6.5 will be supported later this year, probably about April time. I expect that to be launched, and up to that is also VMware vCS 6 update 3. I think is the last update that is available on that platform, and that's all supported. So. Now the last two slides before we go into the demonstration. First of all, how can you acquire RHA? Now RHA can be bought as a standalone product, and that is the version I will show today. The standalone product can be licensed on a per server, per VM, or per host basis with some options, but it also can be acquired via UDP. So when people buy UDP Premium Plus, it comes with the whole UDP suite, Unified Data Protection Suite, including the RHA, and it can also be managed from the UDP console. And I'll show you that later on. I'll have a quick a screenshot of one or workaround on that one. Now to summarize, RHA provides companies a complete availability for not only virtuals but also for physicals. But the main availability that we do is to minimize the data loss and the downtime. It prevents data loss, it prevents ransomware attacks, but you can recover as quickly as possible from ransomware attacks and unplanned outages. It does deliver stringent service level agreements for you, so you can actually confidentially deliver on that, and you make sure that you can actually recover the data in minutes, seconds, or whatever you set for the specific service. And it provides all the enterprise-grade capabilities that you would like to have. For when you use from UDP from a single console, from an easy to use console, but also it's an enterprise-grade capability not only for the enterprise but also for the mid-market and for the SMB side of things. So with that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start up my demonstration lab. 1 second, let me just get it in front of me. So everyone should be able to see my RHA Manager. This is the main console, the main RHA Manager console, what we see here. And what you see at the moment, I've got one scenario running. at the moment. Now I'm going to set up another scenario today as part of the demonstration and do full sync, full seed, and failover, etc. Now in this case, what you see here is I've got a physical Windows server that is replicating to a virtual appliance within the VMware environment, and I can fail that over just in minutes, and and from that point on, that system will be available inside my vCenter environment. Now I'm not going to do this because I just want to do the application side of things, but the settings in the scenario setup are quite similar. There are obviously a few differences because we do in an application once. Now, first of all, let me explain what you can do. You can set up two kind of things. You can set up a new scenario group, and in a scenario group you can actually set up multiple servers, and you can set dependency between each other. Now, the reason for using that is, for example, you have a front-end web server, web shop, and you have a SQL database or an Oracle database backend connected to each other. Now, in case of a failover or in case of switchover sort of things, you want to make sure that the database is running fully before actually the front end becomes available. So with scenario groups, you can set those dependencies. You can set different boot orders and dependencies on when a service is started, that kind of thing. Now I'm going to use the new scenario wizard just for now. I'm going to maximize it a little bit, just maximize that bit. And what I will do today, let me go through the environment first. I've got actually two servers. I've got a SQL server, and that's the main SQL server, and this is my IP address 1.11. And what I also have is I've set up a secondary site, a secondary server, which is SQL Replica. So you can see both of them are live at the moment. Both of them are installed with Windows 2012, SQL 2014, etc. Now when I go into my database, here's the database, and the main database that I want to protect is my Adventure Work database, which is just a default database, and I can actually do a query on that one and execute that one, and it gives you a table or the content of the table member. Now obviously, as a company, you don't go into the SQL database to do queries or whatsoever. End users have an application. So we have an application as well. We created this application which is hard-coded to use SQL. And when I do the show users, it's the same query that you said earlier. So I can set up a new user in here, say demo user 123, and I can do some password in there and submit. And you can see the database works nicely, and I've got the user created, etc. So I'm going to minimize that. So that's the outlet. So we got those two servers. Now let's create a scenario to protect the SQL, and then we continue to work on that one. So I'm going to create a new scenario. And the first option is for me to select the product, and you can see I've got all the options that I have, like Oracle database, even the RHA control service I can protect, SharePoint servers, etc. Full custom application, and you have the full system and the SQL. Now I'm going to use the SQL at the moment. I'm going to select HA and then integrity testing. So once I've done that, I'm going to go to next. And the next part is actually to define the master and the replica. So the master, I'm going to use the host name, and the replica, I'm going to use the host name as well, obviously. I'm going to also verify if the engines are there. Now in my case, the engines are installed, obviously because I've been installed quite often, but if they're not installed, then you can just select the box and just install the agents inside that box. That's not a problem. With the engine, do they require a reboot? No, they don't require a reboot. It's a pretty small engine. It's about, I think, 300 to 400 meg in size, if I'm correct, and it doesn't use much resources. So the engines are installed, and then I'm going to click next. And the first option, what I will get, is actually to choose the database that I want to replicate. Now in this case you see quite a few databases. SQL has of course a lot of system databases, and you cannot deselect those. System database will always be replicated. The only ones that you can select and deselect are actually manually created databases. So I've got two databases here. The AdventureWorks, that's the one we're working on today, and I've got some test database that I use for my backup side of things, for backup testing. I'm not going to take that one with me. Now, when I do next, I can set some properties for the scenario, and the main ones actually, I'm just going to expand this one for you, is to set credentials. I can set report directories, and I can set how do I want to be notified. Do I want to be notified by email? Do I want to have that in event logs, etc.? I'm going to leave this all default. The report handling is quite easy. You can put a share name in there and just have a default share where you've got all the reports, and you get HTML reports nicely presented for you. Now when I do the next screen, I can set some properties for the host and for the replica. Now the main one to use in here is I can do the event notifications, but I can also set a spool directory, and the spool directory is actually where we store the data in case there's latency on the network or whatsoever. So a spool directory is literally you can imagine if you have so many changes and the network can't cope with all the changes, then we need to store those changes before they're actually replicated over, and that's where we use the spool directory for. So the spool directory by default is on the C drive, and I always recommend actually to use another drive for that. I never want to have that on the C drive just in case. Now on the replica side, on the replica properties, I have a few more options. And the first one is quite important, is on the replication, and I can set up my encryption, and this is encryption during transit. So it's not only on disk that we can encrypt, but we do the replication in transit, encrypted AES 128.256 or whatever you configure, and that's very important when going to cloud. Now for recovery side of things, I can set data rewind. So I can set up my journal for CDP. It's up to you if you want to use that. If you want to use replication with delay, maybe you want to use that for some reasons. And the other thing is you can set some scheduled tasks, especially for replica or ensured integrity testing, assured recovery testing side of things. I'm not going to schedule it now, but what I do like is to create a VSS snapshot after I tested and did an integrity test. So I'm going to click next, and then I get into the switchover properties, and in here what we're going to set is actually the properties for network redirection, time to lives, and etc. So I can configure all sorts of things. Now in my environment I've got a pretty simple environment. I'm using all one network card from the master and the replica, but you can of course, as a company, you can decide to have a specific VLAN purely for the replication, so it's not it's in the background and not using the same network as the users do. So let me just put that out. So you can redirect your DNS, and by default this is on application. I can move the IP, but because I'm in the same subnet, I don't need to. I just really want to redirect my network. The only thing I'm going to change here is my TTL, the time to live on the DNS. And we do write changes in the DNS for you, so we do have to have access into DNS in order to do so. Other things you can set is your replica addresses, etc. And for the demo purposes, I'm going to change the timeout section. I'm not going to wait 5 minutes during the demo, but I'm going to set that to 10 seconds, and I can set my heartbeat to 3 seconds. So with that, if any failure happens, then it waits 10 seconds and it fails over automatically. Now press next. Then how are we going to initiate? Now by default, most people set this on manually. They want to make sure that there is a real disaster going on whatsoever, so they want to be alarmed, do tests before actually to perform that switch over. It's entirely up to the company and its SLAs. Now for demo purposes, I'm going to put automatically, and I'm going to do reverse replication manually. So you can do it automatically as well. I always recommend that just to do it not automatically, because you can imagine you have a failure on your master server, you want to fail over that server, or you're just failed over, you need to patch that server, it's going to reboot a couple of times. Just wait until you're finished with everything and then start the replication, and we do that in a minute. So I'll press next. What we're now going to do is verify the whole scenario, and once it is verified, you get either three options. It's all good, you get a warning, or you get an error. If you get a warning, you can continue, but you might want to fix the warning for some reasons. If you get an error, you cannot continue. You have to fix the error before. So in my scenario, it's all good. So I'm going to press next, get a quickly overview, and I say run now. So we're running now the scenario. It's working all fine, and in a minute, what actually now starts is the initial seed. Now, because we just do the database, it's a pretty small database. We just talk about a couple of megs, so it should be pretty quickly to do so. And then once the initial seed is done, it starts the asynchronous replication. Now, we talked about the engine earlier. What the engine actually does is actually capture the data during the write to disk and then sends it over to the secondary site. And when it's not available, then when the link is not enough, or there's not enough bandwidth, then it uses the spool. Now, meanwhile, while this is going on, let me just quickly go through these options in here. We have some more other options in here. So you can use cloud, and I mentioned earlier you can use cloud. At the moment in our current release it's Amazon EC2, so you can set up a complete Amazon EC2 account and you can do a Pulsystem HA into the system. So anything that is local here or from a replica, you can actually configure Amazon. Now, snapshot view is, I find it pretty useful. So, and what you can use in here, and I've done it earlier, I did an integrity test on SQL, and that SQL's integrity test created a snapshot. As you might remember, during the setup of the scenario, I wanted to have VSS snapshot, and that's over here. And what I can actually do is mount this as a drive letter, for instance, on the SQL server. And this is on the SQL remote server. So if you don't know, I've set up a path, and if I go to my SQL remote server, I'm here, and I've got the K drive, that's the VSS snapshot. So that is the snapshot that I took earlier, and I can just browse to the database and just use that database for testing or debugging or whatever you would like to do. So it's pretty awesome to do so. So there you have my database. Just disconnect that one and go back to the master. So I'm going to unmount that drive letter. Next to it, I've got a remote installer, so I can verify the amount of engines that I've installed, if there are any errors and whatsoever. And lastly, I've got the host maintenance monitor, and that's pretty important. So you can imagine you do patching on your master server, and this is all planned. So you don't want to actually have the RHA kicking in during your patching and while you're rebooting the server. So what this does is actually pause the plan. You let RHA know I'm going to perform maintenance on the master or on the replica server, and it pause the plan for you during that time. And once you're finished with your maintenance, you actually say here, okay, maintenance is all done. Now, if anything during your maintenance goes wrong, you can always fail over, obviously. So you have always the ability to fail over to a remote site or to your secondary server, standby server, whatsoever. Now, if I go to my scenario view, my SQL is meanwhile set up. So you can see from time to set up, it's about a minute. It took to be everything synced and replicated. And again, it's a pretty small environment. So I've got now my SQL environment completely protected. And as mentioned earlier, when I did a ping to the SQL, let me just clear this screen and did a ping to the SQL. It works all fine, and everyone can work happily on my database or whatsoever. Now, the reason for having a solution is to be protected. So let's create an error, and I'm going into a SQL server itself, and I'm going to remove or disconnect the network of that server. I'm using VMware Workstation, so I can disconnect the network, and once that is done, then that server is on its own, and the rest of my network won't obviously see that server. So it's going to be taking now about 10 seconds, and what actually happens is in that 10 seconds, the system is going to say, okay, I lost contact with SQL Server, and I'm going to redirect the network, I'm going to redirect the DNS, and then I'm going to start the servers at the SQL R server for you, so users can continue to work. And you can already see in here, master server is not connecting. I'm going to redirect the traffic for you. I'm starting the services, and the switch over completed. So literally within a couple of seconds it's done. So by default, the scenario stops because we can't connect to the server. So if I do now a ping to SQL, you see my network is automatically redirected to the IP address of my SQL R. And if I go to my application, it's still there. I don't have any errors. I can refresh. I can just still work. If I can add a new user during DR, want to whatever, I just create some bloody-blahs. I can still create some users. I have no issues whatsoever. I can still query database, etc., etc. So this is the full transparent overview that you can do. And that's brilliant. So users don't have the issues. As an IT, you can keep on working and fix the solution with the main server. Now let's minimize this. So what we're going to do now is actually say, we've got a really good IT department and they fixed that solution. So we're going to reconnect the network of that specific server, and it will come up in a minute. Now the control server is going to take action now, because you can imagine when the server comes up, you have two live servers. Your SQL R is live, and your SQL Server is live. And what's going to happen? So here's where the control service kicks in and tells the SQL Server basically to bugger off. It's going to shut down its services. It's going to stop the replication inside that SQL Server, because now what's happening is actually, okay, SQL thinks I'm back, I'm going to start my engine, I want to replicate, and now the control service will tell the SQL Server, no you can't, because you're not the master anymore. We're going to shut down the service for you, and users keep on working. And if I still do a ping to my SQL Server, you'll still notice it's going to my replica server, and users are still working on it. Now the server is online, I can start my reverse replication. So I'm going to, or my backwards replication. So I'm going to start the process and press run. And what will happen now is actually it will verify the scenario like we did in the beginning. It will verify the scenario for you. And then we can start that process, and then the changes made on the replica will be made to or presented back to the master server. I'm going to replicate, I'm going to choose block synchronization, and it will start replicating. So now the replication process is reversed. So SQL remote on my replica server is still the master, or is still the main server, but it starts to replicate back. Now while this is going on, I mentioned earlier, let me just go to my main console. I mentioned earlier about UDP and that you can manage things from UDP. So I'm going to start my UDP console, and in a second you will see my UDP console. And what you will see here is I do run everything on a virtual, so it's a little bit slower. Is my 6.5 console. So for those people that have not seen UDP 6.5, it's completely new, completely fresh. Dashboard, so it's pretty awesome actually. But I'm going to focus on the high availability today. So if you want to know more, literally ping me in DM afterwards, and I'll make sure you get a webcast address for 6.5. So in UDP itself, you got a high availability option, and in here you can see high availability itself. You can see the scenarios. I'm going to go scenarios, and I can see actually the servers running. I can see the issues if there are any issues. I can see the reports created, etc., etc. So I can fully manage the server solutions from here. So I can click the backward SQL. I can see now all the systems are done. It's a similar view and a similar overview. Now the main difference with UDP and the standalone RHA is actually that the application, to set up application high availability, you need to have this console, the RHA manager, but you can still manage it from the UDP side of things. Now we're back on track. Everything is working fine. So what I'm going to do now is actually perform a switch back or switch over, and I'll do that immediately, and I will choose the reverse replication scenario. So I'll do it right now, and that will set back, actually stops the services at SQL R and starts to do the network redirection, and then starts the service at SQL. For end users, this is like a power cut. You can imagine when you have a power cut, you're flickering the lights a little bit, and that's it. That's the hiccup, and that's exactly the kind of hiccup that happens now with an application. I would always recommend to do it out of hours anyway, these kind of operations, but obviously you can choose whenever you want. So you can see now the services are stopped, stopping the scenario, do the DNS, redirecting the traffic, and etc. So if I do now a ping to my SQL, I'm back on my original server, and if I go into my database, I'll just do show users, I'm still there. So I can see everything over there, all the users created during the test, and to prove it, I'm just have this still this query open, so I'm going to query again, and you can see during dr or whatever I typed in there that looks during is created. So with that concludes the demonstration. So let me go back to my slide deck. So what's next? If you have any information or you require any information about our RHA solution, go to our website, arcserve.com, go to the product solutions overview. You find information about high availability in there. You have some white papers, case studies. We have our trials link, so make a screenshot of this or just ping me in an email, or the deck will be made available later on, I think as a recording, so you can see the link. So you can download the RHA, or you can download the whole UDP suite. From today, that is the 6.5 suite, including RHA in there. Now, for people in the Benelux region or in the German region that would like to attend an event, the 10th of February I'll be hosting an event in Holland, in Utrecht, where we go a bit more in depth about RHA. So we go a bit more in depth about full system HA, scenario setup, the setup of the whole scenarios, etc., or the setup of the whole solution itself. So it's a bit more in depth program. And with that, I'm going to go to the questions. So let me see if there's any questions. 1 second, everyone. I just need to highlight that one out. I've got a few questions in here, so bear with me. So the first question I have is, my customer needs an HA solution, but they want 30-minute old system state. Does RHA have this capability? Yes, this capability is available. I said it earlier, you can put a delay in, or you can have actually the data rewind solution side of things, so you can have that kind of solution. Obviously, if you have a 30-minute delay, what the other thing you can do is also use the UDP solution. With UDP, you can take every 30 minutes a backup, and then you have that kind of scenario. So we have that availability both with RHA and UDP. The second one, in list scenarios, Arcserve D2D, but not Arcserve UDP, compatible with HA. So Arcserve D2D is actually UDP. The Arcserve D2D is evolved as Arcserve UDP. So hence why we got version 6.5 today of UDP. But it is fully compatible with the solution. However, as I mentioned, you see earlier, you can actually protect your UDP master server, or your UDP console server, and even your IPS server with our RHA solution, and replicate data over. So absolutely. Is UDP Premium? Is UDP Premium not plus license for RHA? How limitations in this license? So UDP Premium does not have RHA in there. It's UDP Premium Plus only. So you can buy optional the RHA license on top of that. So you don't have to buy the whole Premium Plus for the whole solution. You can buy just the solution or the service you want to protect as standalone RHA license. That's not a problem. So how does Rewind work? So Rewind works on two ways. Either you can do it scheduled automatically, so the rewinds you can cover, have a set of data automatically recorded up to a certain amount of time or a certain amount of data that you would like, or you can do it manually. And then the recovery options, when you want to recover, you can actually set, okay, I want to recover from a data rewind, and then you can select either manually created rewind points, or you can point any selecting time back. For that bit, if you want to go a bit more in depth about rewind, contact your local representative and we can set up a demo about this kind of stuff, because it's going a bit more in depth, and because of time limitations we didn't have time for that today. Are there any more questions at the moment? And these are the last questions I see at my screen currently. So we're nicely in time, 55 minutes done. So if there are no more questions, then I would like to thank you all for your time today. Again, today is our UDP 6.5 launch, so make sure you look at the 6.5 stuff. If you want to attend a bit more or try the RHA, go to our website and find a link to download it and contact your local partner or your sales representative for more information. And with that, thank you very much for your time today.